Okay, welcome back. Does everyone have their right notebook in front of them? We'll check that out. And very good, we're ready to begin day 2 of the trial. And Mr. Seaman, are you ready to call, no, I'm sorry, Mr. Dalton available? Please send it in. Mr. Dalton, if you could take the stand again.
Do solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give in the matter now before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may have a seat.
And Mr. Flatoff, you're ready to proceed.
All right, gentlemen, you ready? Mr. Dalton, I'm going to try to go by memory here because I can't seem to find my notes of yesterday. So, yesterday you had testified. One of the things I remember was that Facebook post about the Shishka Bajenta Facebook post. You said that was posted to your Facebook page?
It was on my Facebook page, yes.
Okay. The next thing, I don't recall right at the top of my head, but at one point you had given a price to buy back my bike, according to you. Was that, what was that price? Was it $8,200 or $8,500?
No, it was the cost of the loan.
So it was $4,500.
No, the loan was totaled up to around $6,000 after interest. And your testimony is that I sold you that motorcycle, correct? Yes. Yesterday there was a state exhibit, I believe marked Exhibit 5, was a letter that you had wrote to Judge Gage on 11/23/2015. Do you remember that letter? Yes. In that letter, you, to the judge, you cite the case of my sick drunk driving that I was in the county jail for, that you had bonded me out with the money that I sold you my bike for was $4,500. You said that you used $3,000 of that money to bail me out of jail, and the other $1,500 of that money you gave me to get an apartment in New London. Is that correct? I don't know what you did with the money. I gave you $1,500. You didn't take me to my apartment in New London? I took you to a house in New London, which I believe was your former in-laws. Well, that doesn't matter. I guess that's not matter relevant for this point. At the last paragraph of this letter, you had wrote to the judge, you had, and I quote you, says, "Sir, I posted a bond on the promise that Brian would get help and change. He has not." We'll start with that part. Is that the reason you posted that bond? Yes. So it wasn't for buying my motorcycle? No, I was trying to help you. And then you further go on and you say, "I pray that the court take worried about losing the money." You were worried about losing the $3,000 bond that was my money? The agreement we came to is that you had possibly wanted your bike back. So the bike would have then been collateral, correct? Correct. So if my bike was collateral, now, let me just make a note of that for now. On the night of early morning hours of August 19, 2015, when I had received my drunk driving, it was also, I received it on that motorcycle? Yes. And what day did you and Samantha and Ryan Mathis go get that motorcycle out of impound? I can't tell you. I don't remember. Would have been the next day? Could very well be.
And according to your testimony, at least in these statements, I don't recall yesterday, but you said that the motor was blown, the rear jug was seized up tight.
The rear jug was blown.
And it was seized up tight.
I never said that. You're putting words in my mouth.
Okay, okay. Okay, also, you said, in prior testimony and statements that it costed you $2,000, your cost, to repair that motorcycle. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you are willing to sell me back my motorcycle for the cost of the loan. You didn't care about the parts. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, I want to get to... Let me go through this Kakana. Do you remember your Kakana, your statement to the Kakana Police Department?
No.
Did I have the statement to you? Yes. Could I ask the court to reflect or allow me to see this?
Sure. And that's his written statement that he gave to someone?
Yes, Your Honor. It's a written statements to Kakana police officers on December 5th, 2016, or 2015.
All right, so Mr. Dalton, review that, refresh your memory. When it's refreshed, you can get the statement back.
Okay.
All right, one of the first things, again, it just goes over your beginning of the statement. Says in mid-August, I went to jail for a DUI, and I requested you take care of all my things.
Correct.
Isn't it true that when I went to jail in 2015 that I was placed in a holding cell at the Allegheny County Jail because I was going through medical withdrawals from medication for 4 days?
I have no idea.
Okay, and the next thing on your statement here, it goes down and it says that I had called you 40 times from the county jail.
Quite a lot.
Well, 40 times is an accurate number. I'm kind of. Did you know that exact number of times, either from Officer Tooley, or was it something that was possibly on your cell phone that would have?
Could have been on my cell phone or credit card records.
Okay, is there any reason that you can think of that the calls would only total 19?
I don't know.
Should there have been more than 19 calls?
I don't know.
I'll discuss this stuff in the calls over. Also wanted me, it says in here, I also wanted you to sell my 1955 Chevy for $1,500 to get money to my brother Tony. Is that true?
That's what you reiterated towards me.
And did you try to sell that truck?
Objection, relevance. What's the relevance of this?
Well, eventually I'm giving Your Honor to his statement to the Department of Justice, Special Agent Della Rosa and Petsworn, for many conflicting reports.
Okay, even if you have conflicting statements about not relevant information, you have to tell me why that's relevant to this trial, whether...
For credibility, Your Honor, of the witness.
Okay, and how does that go to credibility just because, it has to go to the consequence of this trial?
Because he's basically lying about the whole motorcycle ordeal and the situation surrounding that.
Okay, I'm going to sustain the objection. The sale of this automobile is not relevant to this trial. Go ahead, Mr. Fleck.
Okay, and after I got out of jail, you said everything was good for a couple of weeks, according to your Kakana statement, correct?
Yes.
So that would have been, I got out of jail August 26th, I believe. So that would have taken us to
approximately the first week of September. Everything was still okay, right?
Yes.
Then you state in your statement that I started calling you at all hours of the night, drunk and high.
Yes.
Why was I calling you?
Looking for somebody to talk to, arguing. I don't even remember. It's been 3 years.
But it had been that I had the money to get my motorcycle back, and I told you I wanted my bike back. Bring me my bike, I got your money.
No.
No? I finally had enough, and I told him I wouldn't take it anymore, is your statement. And we'd have to, and I'd have to leave you alone for a couple more weeks, which I'm going to say now is the third week of September. You were calling and threatening, I was calling and threatening you and your family. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then you told me that you were going to change your phone number and sell my motorcycle.
Yes.
Okay, this is the third week of September.
Objection, Your Honor. The defendant's making statements into the record like it's evidence instead of asking questions.
You're mumbling. I'm not sure if you're just talking to yourself or you're making a statement like that last one.
I just talked to myself, Your Honor. I'm making notes here as I
So
go.
I'd ask you not to do that because number one, yeah, you're trying to provide testimony. This is a statement you're putting out to the court or you're just mumbling yourself. So I'd ask you not to do that.
Yes, Your Honor. It goes on, he said, after you told me you were going to sell motorcycle stolen. And the officer that I reported that motorcycle stolen, what was his name was Sergeant. You had commented in your statement, you cooperated fully with the sergeant about it. Also, your parole officer.
Relevance, and these issues were taken up in pretrial motion that this is inadmissible. Other acts, and asked the court enforce the previously ordered conditions of this testimony and parameters of relevance.
All right. Mr. Flatoff, I'd ask that you asking a question of this witness.
This isn't evidence, so could I show the witness a piece of paper to see if he recalls this drawing?
Sure.
On December...
Are you marking it as evidence or is this something?
I could, yes, Your Honor, we could. As an exhibit evidence. I don't know. Do you recognize that drawing?
Yes.
And did you give this who did you give that drawing to?
The Town Police Department.
And what is it a drawing of?
The Eagle Nation cycles.
And why did the Tacoma Police Department request you to draw that?
I don't know if they requested me to draw it.
Is there a reason why? I mean, it shows the basic camera locations inside of the garage, or I guess inside of the building. What are those X's on the drawing?
Honestly, don't remember.
Would they have been the cameras that are like it's one of the circles has a arrow pointing it to it?
Objection, Your Honor. Witness has already answered the question. He doesn't have the knowledge.
No, I mean, I'll overrule the objection. It is cross-examination. So Mr. Flatoff could suggest the answer, and if he knows, he knows. If he doesn't, he doesn't.
Are you familiar with the layout of the security cameras of Eagle Nation?
No.
Okay. Also on this picture, there's a little square, it says in Steve's office, and it's marked with an arrow going to it that says safe.
Yes.
You knew where Stephen Arito's safe was?
Yes, it's right behind his desk in plain view.
And why did the Coquitlam police officers need that information?
They didn't ask me to give it to him. I gave it of my own volition.
No further questions regarding this exhibit, Your Honor.
All right. Are you moving it into evidence?
Yes, Your Honor, move that into evidence.
Any objections?
No, Your Honor.
All right, we received. Okay.
Yes, Your Honor. Could I show that also to the jury? Or publish it to the jury?
For what benefit? I'm not even sure what it was offered for. So that he provided a map to the Coquitlam Police Department showing the layout of Eagle Nation?
Yes, Your Honor. It's actually more about the safe that goes into this witness's, it allows really a glimpse into this witness's mind. Again, that we're not allowed to bring up.
Okay, I'm going to deny your request at this time. I just don't see what relevant information has been provided yet, but during closing arguments, if you want to reference it or show it to them, you certainly can do that, or if it becomes more relevant at a later point, you can publish it.
There are several points, and unless we're going to watch the entire interrogation, Your Honor, there are several points that I had marked. I stayed up late last night to mark these, this interview of Vance Dalton by the Department of Justice on December 5th at 3:20. And I have the interview here that I'd like to play for the jury for the contents of that interview.
State would object, Your Honor, unless the defendant has a specific point that was inconsistent with the testimony. You can ask the defendant, or the witness about that, and give him an opportunity to explain or deny it, or if he has a specific point that was consistent with testimony after a recent or implied charge of fabrication, you can ask him about that, but the state would otherwise object to playing this entire interview.
Right, so Mr. Flatoff, you have to have a reason to show the interview. I mean, if you're saying he's inconsistent on several points, you can ask him about that, but we have him here, you can question him, and there's no point of just, in fact, it's not allowed legally, just to put on an interview just for the sake of having it on there. There has to be a legal purpose for that.
Yes, Your Honor. I didn't pick up the material. In your statement to, this is relatively minor, but in your statement to the Department of Justice, Pettsborn and De La Rosa, according to this video, you had told them I had called you from the county jail back and forth like 49 times. Do you recall that?
No.
Can we play this video?
Do you have it teed up for that section?
I can have it there, 328.
Guess I object as to the relevance.
Well, because refresh the witness's mind, because that's what's on, it's on the video.
That's improper refreshment of recollection recorded.
If you can get it up quickly, Mr. Flatoff will allow you to confront him with his statement.
Well, yeah, I'll move on to more important.
Okay, go ahead.
See one of these, yes. Multiple things. If you want to take the video, do it for me.
Mr. Flatoff, are you showing the video to have him say on the video, you contacted him 49 times?
No, I'm actually calling him, like you say, where he says that the bike was seized up tight. Also, that it was used as collateral, or that he says it wasn't used as collateral, or he says it was, I don't know, it's, and change, he changed his number, he changed his number the third week of September, and it's going to be going, Your Honor, to connect to the November 27th letter that he had wrote to the judge, saying that I was calling, harassing him, and the question
and his family if I don't have his number.
All right. How long does this take?
I don't know, Your Honor. I was up till 4:30 in the morning, writing down with all the many contradicting statements through this, and I guess I'm trying to skim through them right now.
Your Honor, I would object because he could just simply ask the witness that question.
Well, you did ask about the number of times.
He's not gonna remember.
Mr. Flatoff, he did ask about the seize-up issue, and so you did confront him with it, and Mr. Dalton did give an answer, so we'll allow this to a certain degree.
Oh,
The interview's on a flash drive now?
the interview is on a flash
Not
drive.
on the disc?
No, the disc I need for this computer, because they converted it into a different player.
Doesn't matter what you put in there now, what else the connections.
All right, Mr. Flatoff, I'm going to ask that you move on. I guess maybe we'll take a break later and see what we can do to get this equipment working again.
Okay, we'll move on. Later in your interview, on the interview that's recorded here at the police department at marker 3/30/22, you said that basically the next morning you went and changed your phone number. Then he told you through other people he got my number. Who are the other people that you were told through that I got your number?
I don't recall.
Do you recall who you would have given your number to that I knew?
No.
Did you ask people to avoid giving me your number?
I don't recall.
Was that a concern for you?
Yes, because of the threats you made.
But you don't remember who told you?
No.
At marker 331 on this recording, that isn't working for us today, say that I was throwing nasty messages at you through other people you knew. Is that correct?
I assume so, yes.
Who are those other people?
I don't recall.
How many friends do we have in common?
I don't know.
Initially in your interview, by marker 331:45, you tell Petsport and Della Rosa that you were on the phone with Ryan Watterson at 911 for 4.5 hours. Is that correct?
Could very well be.
Would it have been more correct to say it was 3 hours and 35 minutes? 33 hours and 35 minutes.
I can't tell you.
At marker 331:53, at first you say to Petsport and Della Rosa, at first I wanted to extort you for it.
Yes, by reporting the motorcycle stolen.
And is it true in this statement that you had told them that I was trying to extort you for $50,000 for a motorcycle?
Yes.
And again, the simple thing, like you said, I could buy back my motorcycle for the cost of the loan, correct?
Yes.
Did you call the police about this at any time?
No. I thought it was drunken ramblings.
You stated that. In your statement in this tape, you said on December 5th you were actually going to be coming down to that garage, but your battery was dead and you were charging on the motorcycle. That is the reason why you weren't there, correct?
I don't remember.
Recording this statement or this interview many times, do you recall that you were on the phone with 911 and you were reporting allegedly what you heard me saying in the background? Is that correct?
Yes.
according to you, that I was screaming in the background, if Vance don't get down here, I'm gonna kill everyone. Something similar to that.
Summer.
I guess the key point for me is that you said I was screaming it in the background, and that's why you heard it.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna go to, at about approximately marker 338. How long have you known me?
Quite a few years.
And how do you know me?
Through your tattoo parlor.
Did you tell the officer Petsport and Della Rosa you know me, we went to high school together?
Yes. We went to the same school.
And that was the early 90s?
Late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, in the late 80s and early 90s, if we went to school together, you'd have had to been in Green Bay Correctional Institute. I went to high school in 85.
We went to the same school, Brian. Spash.
How old are you?
46.
And I am 49.
Can't tell you. Don't keep track of your birthday.
And you said we're in the same grade?
No.
Are you by chance confusing me with my younger brother, and according to your statement, who is a year younger than me?
Could very well be.
And then basically after schooling, you say you lost contact with me. When is the next time you made contact with me? Would it have been in 1991, 92 in Menasha at Shotguns Tattooing?
Could very well be.
But isn't that the time you just said that we went to high school together?
You're the one who brought up your brother. I could have confused you with your brother.
So, well, would it be fair to say that in 1990,
No.
91, 92, that owning a business, that I wasn't in high school?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Yeah, we already, Mr. Flatoff, I'm going to ask that you move on. The fact you went to high school together or not, I just don't see how that's relevant to this case.
The next time you said you seen me after 1991 would have been 2014, correct?
Again, Your Honor, relevance.
Mr. Flatoff?
I'm just trying to establish, Your Honor, his statement here. I mean, it's not. I mean, if I could play the statement, I mean, he's going to object to what I would have to say, I would assume.
I'm going to sustain the objection. Again, I'm trying in my mind, Mr. Flatoff, to figure out how this is relevant to the trial. I mean, if he's made some misstatements about the background information, show me, why that's relevant to this trial.
Yeah, he made all of the statements about the background information are inaccurate or completely false.
Okay?
And I guess that's what I'm getting at with this, but it's going somewhere through these other,
Can we get there?
I'm trying to read as fast as I can. Okay, according to your statement of Petsport and Della Rosa, marker 34655, after I was arrested for my drunk driving in 2015, August of 2015, you were unloading my shop, you said, because you were saving all my stuff because I had nobody to take care of all the stuff. Is that correct?
At your behest, yes.
At my what?
You requested it.
At one point after this had happened, did my ex-wife contact you?
Yes.
And what did she do that for?
Objection, calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Did my ex-wife come to you with the power of attorney papers because she felt you were robbing me and told
No.
you to turn over that equipment?
Same objection, Your Honor, relevance as well, and admissible character.
Sustained.
Did you turn my equipment
that you have taken out of my shop over to my ex-wife.
Objection, relevance.
We'll allow it. Mr. Dalton?
Yes.
How did you get my motors by Harley out of impound?
I pay the impound fees.
And they just released it to you?
Yes.
Did they question whether it was your vehicle or not?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Who signed this title? My title? The actual signature part on the title?
I assume you did.
Could I show the witness this signature?
Sure. Just so we're clear, it's already been marked as exhibit, so you're showing him the title, is that correct?
The back side of the title, Your Honor, I don't think is an exhibit, and that's the actual signature on the back of that title.
Your Honor, statement, again, question the relevance of this.
We'll allow it. So you want to show the back side of your title. Do you want it marked as an exhibit?
Your Honor, yes, Your Honor, we could. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Flatoff, do you have a question for him regarding that exhibit?
Do you see that signature on the back of it?
I see two signatures.
On the one for the sale of the motorcycle, do you recognize that signature?
No.
Did Samantha Aim sign that title?
Objection, Your Honor, what's the relevance?
Mr. Flatoff?
Well, the title, Your Honor, was signed on that motorcycle. If they say that, it wasn't signed on me. That's the relevance.
And how's that relevant to this trial?
Well, because he's saying I sold him a motorcycle when I was in a holding cell in Allegheny County Jail, that I didn't have access to talk to anybody.
All right, so he said he didn't, he assumed you signed it, so are you going to ask him where he got that from, the title?
Yeah, that's where I was going. I mean, next with that is, where did you get that title?
I believe it was given to me by your ex-wife.
Where would she have gotten it from?
Objection, cause for speculation.
Sustained.
Okay, did you also have my safe out of my business?
Objection, relevance.
Mr. Flatoff?
Well, because the title of my wife was in my safe, Your Honor.
All right.
Yes.
Did Samantha Aim have my wallet to get the combination of that safe
Objection, relevance.
to give you that title?
Overruled.
I don't know if she had the combination to your safe or not, or your wallet. I'm not her.
But were you in contact with her back then?
Yes.
And you knew her how?
Through you.
And would you agree, according to your statements, that I had known her for 2 months?
I don't remember.
In your interview at marker 35004, Agent Petsborn is asking you, so when he's saying you had previously told him that, according to your statements here, that you had a buyer for my bike for $3,800, which I turned down. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then Agent Petsborn asked you, so you got a guy that will give you $3,800, but you don't want that, so you let me see what the bank will give me?
I don't remember.
Well, after I turned down the $3,800, well, I'm gonna move on. So when he's saying when I was saying I didn't want the $3,800, Petsborn asked, he's thinking I want someone to pawn it or buy it back.
I don't remember.
And it further goes on, no, he just didn't want someone to tear the bike down and sell it piece by piece. Do you recall telling him that?
Possibly.
A lot of guys, it goes on, you state, a lot of guys will buy blown up bikes, strip them down, and sell them piece by piece. Do you recall that?
Possibly.
Okay, there's marker 35929. The day I called you from the county jail and told me this is what your statement is to your actual statement according to this video. You recall, again, the day he called me from jail and told me to go get his bike from impound, couldn't even get it to fire. It's just junk. It wouldn't even turn over. He locked that rear jug up tight. You remember saying that now?
Possibly.
But before you said it wasn't locked, it was not seized up tight, correct?
That was my testimony, yes.
So now it's possible. Is there any, is there a way that it's possible if a bike is seized up, locked up tight, that, and you're a mechanic, that you could mistake something seized up tight to possibly not seize it up tight?
Yes. Would you like me to break down the internal combustion engine for you?
Well, that won't be necessary, Vance. Okay, in your statement, at approximately marker 354:57, you had reported to Agent Petscorn Della Rosa, again, while I was in New London, another mutual friend stopped by and said there were little babies laying around everywhere. So I'm guessing he's either on heroin or meth. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Who was the mutual friend?
Objection, Mr. Relevance.
What's the relevance, Mr. Flatoff?
I'm guessing. We'll find out who the mutual friend is, in order to find out the relevance, I guess.
I'm going to sustain the objection and ask you to move on.
How many prior felony convictions do you have?
Objection,
Have you ever been
Improper
convicted by...
character. improper character, improper.
Was this covered in the pretrial? Prior convictions?
Not the way it was just asked.
Okay, so can you rephrase the question?
Yes, Your Honor. Have you ever been convicted of a crime?
Yes.
How many? How many times?
I think 7.
And in this interview, at marker 355:54, Agent Petscorn Della Rosa asked how you know Samantha Zweers, where you had said you knew her through me, and I had only known her for 2 months.
Objection, that's testimony.
All right, so ask your question, Mr. Flatoff.
Why did you have Samantha Zweers' phone number?
Objection, Relevance.
Mr. Flatoff, why is that relevant?
Because, Your Honor, I mean, it was Vance Dalton and Samantha Zweers that got my motorcycle out of impound without my permission and signed that title. I mean, I'm just trying to establish a connection between the two of them.
So by finding out how he got her telephone number, how does that help? So
Their relationship was a little bit more than him knowing her. And,
Okay, so then ask the question instead of asking how he got her telephone number. So I'm going to sustain the objection.
Did you have any other relationships with Samantha Aim?
Objection, what's the relevance to that?
Mr. Flatoff.
We established a relationship, I guess, Your Honor.
Sustained.
According to your statement to Petscorn and Della Rosa, at a marker 357, Agent Petscorn asked you, at that point he was threatening you or that you couldn't do things with him. And you replied because at the time he was living in New London, he says because he wouldn't drink with me, he had kids, I got made up, I got mad and quit talking to and taking my calls. Do you recall making that statement?
Possibly.
So here you're saying, to sum it up, that you quit taking my calls
because you wouldn't drink with me. In prior statements, you said that you quit taking my calls because I was threatening you to kill your wife and kids. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did I ever met your wife and kids?
I don't know.
Have I ever been to your house?
I don't know.
Okay, I don't recall if we addressed this, but according to this tape, you had said, that you didn't care about receiving the money to get the parts for fixing the bike that was said is allegedly blown. You just wanted the loan covered, but you were going to wipe out $2,000 in parts?
Is that a statement or a question, Brian?
That's the question.
Yeah, I didn't care about the money.
I don't remember if we covered this one either, but referring to marker 406 on your interview, you said, or according to your prior statements yesterday, you said that Facebook post was posted to your Facebook.
Objection asked and answered.
Sustained.
And in your statement to detectives, you show them, you say that you had blocked me from your Facebook, is that correct?
Yes.
And then you further go on to say that Facebook post was actually on my Facebook page, is that correct?
Yes.
So if you blocked me on Facebook, how was I posting things on yours?
I didn't say you posted it, I said it was shared on my page.
When you deleted it off of Facebook, you said you took a screenshot of it.
Yes.
Can you explain why there's no date on this post?
I have no idea, I'm not an IT tech.
You had made a comment to Agent Rose and Petsford and threats to be killed, and my threats to allegedly kill you. He asked being specific, like stab you with guns or anything like that. Did you tell him after that, oh, he's going to shoot me?
I don't remember.
And another thing in your testimony at 412 marker, you had told Agent Petsborn and Della Rosa, I choke slammed Samantha against the wall. That was the end of that. Is that correct?
That's what I was told, yes.
You remember that? Who told you that?
I don't remember.
Do you recall? Never mind. After that statement, Agent Petsford asked you how you knew Samantha, and you basically said, you know, it was through me, but that you were trying to help her when you can. Do you recall that? And then according to your statement, you say during the incident at Eagle Nation Cycle, while you were on the phone with 911 and with an open line with Eagle Nation Cycle, you gave play-by-play information to 911. Is that correct?
Yes.
Then you go on to say after that, I was mumbling and you couldn't understand me. Do you recall that?
No.
And again, the tape, I mean, I left it off with, again, you overheard me screaming in the back room that I was going to kill you, your wife, and kids. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what I generally remember from that day.
Are you a confidential informant for any law enforcement agencies?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
Sustained.
Is there any reason for your recent prostitution conviction that you weren't?
Your Honor, there's no foundation for this or basis for it. This is improper character, untrue. I think we need to have a conference with the defendant about
All right,
it.
I'm going to ask you to move on, Mr. Flatoff, and we'll address that outside the presence of the jury.
I believe I have this witness subpoenaed, Your Honor, so if I have any further questions, I'll just still have to wait for that. I have no further questions at this time for this witness.
Mr. Seaman?
No further questions. State request the court release the witness from all subpoenas.
Mr. Flatoff?
I have no further questions for this witness. Yes, Your Honor, I'm okay with the release of subpoena. He's not going to remember.
All right, Mr. Dalton, your release, you can step down.
Thank you.
Mr. Seaman, are you ready to call your next witness?
State calls Jonathan Kufel.
Jurors, if you would like to stand, you may do so. All right, officer, you can take the stand here and raise your right hand, please.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give in the matter now before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
You may be seated.
Please state your name.
Jonathan Kufel,
Can you spell the last for the record?
Kuffel,
And how are you employed, Mr. Kufel?
with the City of Neenah Police Department.
And are you a police officer of the City of Neenah Police Department?
Yes, sir.
How long have you been a police officer?
Almost 12 years.
And for all those years with Neenah Police Department?
Yes, sir.
And do you have any specialized training as a police officer of the Neenah Police Department, specifically regarding special weapons and tactics?
Yes.
And can you briefly describe that training?
I'm currently the SWAT team leader. I've been through the NTOA, which is the National Tactical Officers Association's team leader course. I've been through the team commander course. I've been through the ALERT, which is the Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training. And I've been through multiple other conferences and schools throughout my career.
And how long have you been on the SWAT team?
10 plus years,
And how long have you been its leader?
3 years plus.
And so I'm going to direct your attention to December 5th, 2018. Do you recall that day?
Yes.
And initially, were you on duty that day?
No, I was not.
Now, at approximately 9:11 a.m. or so, were you called onto duty?
Yes.
And what was the nature of that call on?
Captain Long called me and advised me there was an active hostage situation at Eagle Nation on Main Street in Neenah, where one shot had been fired.
And what did you do, if anything, in response to this call out?
I immediately left. I was at the YMCA in Neenah. I left and proceeded to the Neenah Police Department. While en route, I contacted Winnebago County Dispatch and requested the SWAT team be paged out. Contacted the front desk at the Neenah Police Department, advised them to make follow-up phone calls to all the SWAT officers, making sure they were on the way.
And did you eventually arrive at the Eagle Nation cycle location?
Yes.
And that's in the city of Neenah, Winnebago County, Wisconsin, correct?
Yes, sir.
Was anybody on scene when you had arrived?
Yes.
From your department?
Yes.
Who was on scene?
There were multiple officers on scene. I made contact with Lieutenant Obrey over the radio requesting his location. He was by Gord's Pub, just to the west of Eagle Nation. So I proceeded to that location where our Lieutenant Obrey, Officer Hiding, and Officer Ross were located.
Now, what, if any, relevant information were you provided upon making contact with Obrey and the other officer?
Well, when I arrived at the police department, I grabbed my radio and I turned it on to the channel that we were listening to, and I overheard a countdown. Dispatch was advising that the subject had advised if someone wasn't at Eagle Nation within 5 minutes, he would start killing people. Then when I arrived on scene, first thing I asked Lieutenant Obrey was, how far are we along in that 5 minutes?
And what were you informed?
He said, we're about 5 minutes from that transmission.
Now, as a SWAT team leader, do you assume operational control even if somebody outranks you at this point?
Yes.
And what was relevant to you in your capacity as a SWAT team leader once you became aware that a countdown to your knowledge, was expired or about to expire in a hostage situation?
Once I was advised of the countdown, I heard the countdown at the police department, and I knew we were going to have to make what we call a hasty entry, which is an emergency entry into a fortified, or we call it a stronghold position, basically a structure. If we get advised of countdown, we don't have time to do a normal planning operation. It's basically an emergency entry.
What would be otherwise the normal planning of an operation for a hostage rescue entry minus having a countdown over your head?
If we had an ongoing hostage situation, we didn't have the immediate threat of countdown or active killing starting, we would attempt to establish negotiations, set up a perimeter, make sure the perimeter is secure from inside and outside, and then we'd set up a hasty team, we call it, which would be an emergency response team in case something became active and we'd have to respond. And then while officers are doing that, other officers would be planning what we call a deliberate plan, which would be our play-by-play, if we'd have to make entry at some point, that'd be our pre-planned entry.
And that would involve looking at diagrams of the interior of the building you're about to enter?
Yes.
What other information would you normally gather in a SWAT situation minus not having a countdown? We would
look for floor plans. We try to introduce technology into the structure if possible, like cameras, remote cameras, microphones, or something like that to try to figure out active live information. We would also try to get information regarding the hostages and any hostage takers inside the building.
But on December 5th, 2015, in the Eagle Nation cycle, you didn't have the opportunity to do that, correct?
No, we had no time.
So, did you form a hasty team?
Yes. When I arrived, I supplemented. Lieutenant Obrey had formed a patrol response hasty team. When I arrived, we were myself, Lieutenant Obrey, Officer Ross, and then shortly after, Lieutenant Thompson and Officer Hoffer arrived.
And once the rest of the officers arrived, then what did you do?
I advised them. I had seen Lieutenant Thompson and Officer Hoffer as I was leaving the police department and they were arriving. I advised them of the countdown. So as soon as they arrived on scene, I basically said we had to go, and I established our entry order.
What was your entry order?
Lieutenant Thompson first, Lieutenant Obrey, Officer Hoffer, myself, and Officer Ross.
Did you line the officers, including yourself, up in this formation then?
We established we call it from our last points of cover and concealment towards our breach point.
And what happened once you had everybody lined up?
We decided to move where I made a decision that we had to go.
And what happened after you made the decision that it was time to go?
We proceeded to our breach point.
And what was the breach point?
It'd be the rear door. The directions are confusing, but it's towards the southeast side of the structure.
It'd be the rear alley door?
Yes, sir.
And so, once you established that as your breach point, your hasty team moved towards the door, correct?
Yes, sir.
What happened once you reached the door?
We paused. Lieutenant Thompson was carrying a ballistic shield. Lieutenant Obrey was known as his driver, so he's number 2 man. Typically, we have number 3 person would go open the door, and that was Officer Hoffer, so he moved offline and went to open the door.
And what is the driver's role?
To stay with the shield and just be the first non-shield bearer, and he carries a long rifle, kind of our main offensive weapon, if you want to call it that.
And what does the shield holder carry aside from the shield?
He carries a ballistic shield that would, depending on the rating level, stop or potentially stop any incoming rounds.
Does he carry any other weapon though besides the shield?
Pistol, handgun. Lieutenant Thompson had his handgun out.
So you just testified that the third person in the stack, Officer Hoffer, then broke off to open the door?
Yes, sir.
What happened once he opened the door?
It happened very fast. The door opened. Lieutenant Thompson and Obrey went in. I don't know how we did it, but it appears that Officer Hoffer and I were able to go through the door pretty much at the same time. I was a little bit ahead of him, and then he was off to my right.
Was anybody seeing anything upon entry into the doorway, either yourself or that you could hear?
I know there was the word police was saying as we made entry. As to who it was, I couldn't say.
Now, can you describe what the day was like outside when you made entry?
It was a very nice December day, very sunny, no clouds in the sky, rather warm, and it was in the 40s.
And when you opened the door, did that have any relevance or effect on your entry into the Eagle Nation shop?
For myself, it was darker inside than outside. I didn't have some limitations of a ballistic shield or a helmet visor as Lieutenant O'Brien Thompson had, so I didn't have the reflection as bad as they did.
So you yourself, were you that impacted at all from the contrast in light?
I could tell the difference, but it wasn't incapacitating.
So now you testified that you heard at least one of the officers, somebody yelling police or something to that effect when you made entry, correct?
Yes.
What did you observe next upon entering Eagle Nation?
Upon entry, I could not push any further into the building. There was a lot of stuff in the way. It was motorcycle parts, tools. I wanted to push down the wall more, but I was stopped. There was a lot of miscellaneous items right in my way, so I had to stop. And I started scanning the room, and I remember seeing at least 2 individuals standing there.
Could you tell what happened at this point to the 2 front men in the stack?
No.
No. You couldn't see them?
I just wasn't probably, a lot was going on, I probably just wasn't aware of what happened.
So what happened next? You testified you entered and you saw 2 individuals.
I remember verbal commands being given. I remember seeing verbal commands, what they were, I don't remember. It was probably a combination of police, hands, get down on the ground, something to that effect. And I know I heard somebody else giving verbal commands as well.
And what happened next?
At first it was, again, it felt longer like it than it was, but it was a non-reaction. I just remember these individuals staring at us, basically wondering why we were there. They were just kind of staring at us, no reaction, just kind of staring at us, kind of surprised that we were there.
And how many individuals was it that you said you saw?
I can remember seeing 2.
And what happened next?
Next thing you know, I caught, all hell broke loose. We started receiving a heavy volume of gunfire towards our location.
From the location of the individuals that you observed?
Yes, I could feel it coming off. I was in the building, it was coming from my right. I could feel the muzzle blast or the concussion of the fire coming on my face. I didn't know exactly where it was coming from, I just knew it was coming from my right. And I kind of dipped my head down, and at that same time started hearing Officer Hoffer yelling he was hit.
Now you said right, but you kind of motioned with your hands towards the front. Would it be like your forward right?
My forward right, yes.
And you said the next thing you knew, you could hear Officer Hoffer yelling he was hit.
Yes.
So what did you do next now as the SWAT team captain? Or
Well,
leader?
yeah, as I was starting to feel, I felt it was all happening very fast. I heard the gunfire, felt the gunfire, and I looked down. Officer Hoffer was yelling, I'm hit. I looked down. My other 2 guys, Lieutenant Thompson and O'Brien, were gone. I had no idea where they went. They weren't standing up. I was basically standing by myself. Officer Hoffer was to my right, laying on the ground, grabbing his head, saying he was hit. At that point, I feared for my life and the rest of my teammates, so I used target-specific directed fire towards individuals.
Water.
Thanks.
And this target-specific directed fire, would that be fair to summarize as like a suppressive fire?
That's military terms. That definition is controlled, sustained, directed fire at an individual that you can't clearly see who was causing deadly force. So I utilized that to stop the threat so I could protect myself and my teammates.
And after you essentially returned fire, what did you do? Or what were you doing while you were returning fire?
I was yelling, Hoffer's been hit, let's get out of here. So I backed out of the door again. I was by myself, at least I appeared to be by myself, so I backed out the door. Hoffer had kind of crawled out the door, and I stayed, we called it the threshold of the door, just on the door frame. He was laying on his back just outside. I was on the threshold, and another volume of gunfire, another round of gunfire came, and I thought the individuals were coming after us, so I leaned back in, and I again used target-specific directed fire to stop the threat because I thought they were coming after us. As I was doing that, Lieutenant O'Brien came up from what ended up being a stairway. He ended up coming up, and his head was like right by my muzzle, so I stopped firing, and I pulled him out, and then Lieutenant Thompson exited the building after him.
At some point, did you recall striking something or somebody hitting something inside Eagle Nation that essentially caused further cover or concealment for your team?
Yes, as I was delivering my first round of target-specific directed fire, I didn't know what it was at the time, but it was a plume of like appeared to be smoke or dust. And I remember thinking to myself, well, this is a good time to get out of here, because I couldn't see anything anymore. So I just batted it. It ended up being a fire extinguisher that got hit by a round, and it just created a plume of dust. So.
And what caliber round was the rifle fire that you were discharging?
223 caliber.
Now, you testified that there was a second volley of fire that was coming towards you, correct?
Yes.
And then you returned fire again?
Yes.
So what happened after you were able to get O'Bray and Thompson out the door? What happened next?
After I got them out the door, I helped Hoffer get to his feet. Sergeant Eichmann was running towards us, so I kind of pushed Officer Hoffer towards her as she was running towards us, or her, and I told her to get him out of there. And then I ran around the truck to meet up with the rest of the teammates that were kind of forming back up at the doorway. Lieutenant Thompson was having the shield. I believe it was Lieutenant Thompson attempted to make verbal contact again, yelling something, anybody inside, this is the police department, or something to that effect. And immediately we got another round of gunfire.
So what did you do after that last blast of fire towards you?
I remember saying, those aren't no fucking hostages, and we're getting out of here. So we did a withdrawal back to our rally point by fire. Three of us, Lieutenant O'Bray, Thompson, and myself, went back to Gord's Pub. Officer Ross, I kind of lost track of where Officer Ross went, but he ended up going, would be to the north or to the east, and formed up with the officers over there.
Basically the opposite end of the alley.
Yes, sir.
And he was with Hoffer and Eichmann?
Yes.
Now, did you maintain that position then by Gorge, your initial rally point?
Yes.
Now, at some point, did you observe or hear more gunfire coming from Eagle Nation?
Yes, a short time later, I couldn't give you an estimation, it was a very short time later, the three of us on our side heard another round of gunfire coming from the location of the doorway, where we were at by the door.
And did you hear more gunfire after that?
Again, it was all kind of one volley of gunfire, it sounded like at the time.
Now, at some point, did somebody emerge from Eagle Nation that you observed?
Eventually, yes.
And did you make contact with any of these people that came out?
Yes. Made contact with two individuals that came our direction. I took one of them into custody.
And do you recall who that was?
I believe it was Mr. Peterson.
Would that be Michael Peterson?
Yes.
Now, by this time, was there anything in the alleyway that you observed that was relevant to this case?
Not at this time. I don't remember. I was dealing with my priority was the subject that was walking back to me.
You receive any injuries as a result of this?
Yes.
And how were you injured?
Don't know.
What was the injury?
It was a bruise and a puncture wound, yes, on my left thigh.
So is it fair to say that this was a rather traumatic, adrenaline-filled experience?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Officer Kufel. No further questions.
All right, Mr. Flatoff, any questions?
Yes, Your Honor, and I'm curious if the district attorney would object to showing the video of Squad 1 with the teams, Officer Kufel's team's approach to the building, all the way up to the exit of the building, I guess, so the jury would be able to have, I guess, a visual aid to understand what Officer Kufel is talking about, what took place.
Mr. Seaman?
No objection.
All right. It will need to be marked and presented.
Okay, well, he's setting that up.
Mr. Slotchie, can we get that marked before, so we know exactly what items you
There's multiple items on here. It's a flash drive that has,
Okay.
so I don't know. I can give the court the file number or file designation. I don't know how we would
I think I have actually a CD of Squad 1. It says, I don't know if it plays, but
Your Honor, I can offer State's Exhibit number 9 for defense use if...
All right. Okay, so that's already been pre-marked, State's Exhibit number 9 is that CD?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
here we go, 941, marker number 94149. Well, it's on, it'll come across the top of the screen. There we go. 941, or 941, excuse me, 49, 941, 49 to 943.
All right, so is this the part we're showing to the jury?
No.
Oh, you're just getting to it?
Yeah.
And so again, Mr. Flatoff, for the record, we have to be specific when the video starts and when it stops so that the record's clear what has been shown to the jury.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I guess while you're setting it up, I can say for the record, it basically, again, like I stated, it's a visual. All right, Officer Kufel, does your squad cars, need the squad cars, have squad car videos that record?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, have you seen this video from Squad Car 1?
Yes.
Which squad car do you believe it is?
I believe this is the patrol supervisor, squad car 1.
And would that have been Lieutenant O'Bray?
That was his car, yes.
And you said you reviewed this to your best. When did you first review this, Dave?
I don't recall the date.
Would it have been on December 9th, 2015, in your interview, or prior to your interview with the Department of Justice at 9:35 with Kira Shallhorn?
It was before the interview. I don't believe she was in there with him when we watched the video.
By before the interview, days before or just hours before?
Objection, I thought he was laying foundation. How's this relevant?
All right, are we going to get to the
I'll get to
video?
that. I'll get to that point, yes. Let's just get to the video. Does this look like the outside of Eagle Nation?
The one side, yes.
As we play the radio, I guess.
All right, you want to get the lights?
Kevin, announce what time it is.
It's 9:41:27.
And 2 goes to 9:43 for this part. Yeah, there's audio and video.
Everyone who just been advised he is in the back of the building and he might be workbench in the back of the building.
Can we stop the video actually? I would stop the video actually at marker number 94206. Okay, no, it ain't showing up on that one. Let's go to 94212. Does that, again, accurately depict, in your opinion, the time frame of that happening? Or the events that happened?
That was us, yes.
Okay, let it play to 943.
Floor 131, shots fired. According to our caller, shots fired.
Try to go across, but don't the doors. Try to go across it.
Shots fired. Copy.
Move into the front, move into the front. Okay, I guess we can continue the question. Officer Kufel, would you say that that is an accurate representation, I guess, for that time frame of what happened in this day?
Yes, that was a video from that angle, yes.
Were you by chance wearing a body camera that day?
No, it was not.
Mr. Flatoff, are you done with the
Yes,
video?
I'm done with the video, Your Honor, for now. I'm just going to move on to questions.
Just for timing purposes, Mr. Flatoff, I'll give you 5 more minutes and then we're going to take a morning break.
Okay. What is your complete history and involvement with Eagle Nation or the outlaw motorcycle gang known as Hell's Lovers?
Objection, relevance.
Let's hear is that the end of the question? What's your relationship with them?
No, what is your complete history or involvement with the Eagle Nation where we're at here? Do you have prior history?
Objection, relevance. Vague.
I guess I'll hear the officer's answer and we'll see how far we're going to go with this, Mr. Flatoff.
Can you be more specific?
Do you have any prior history with them, say as in law enforcement, dealing with them in criminal activity?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Were you ever involved on prior, as a SWAT team member, entering this building at Eagle Nation?
Objection, relevance.
So your question is, have they done other entries into this building?
Yes.
Sustained.
Were you part of the 2012 drug raid?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Improper character.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to establish relevance between history between Officer Kupel.
All right, why don't we, this might be a good time to do our morning break and we can settle some of these issues outside the presence of the jury.
You may be seated.
All right, officer, you can step down, but have a seat in the back. So, Mr. Flatoff, why do you think the 2012 entry, if there was one, is relevant to this case?
Well, Your Honor, part of why it's relevant, I guess, is the Neenah Police Department has a history going back as far as I can date and recorded evidence to 2011, but more specifically 2012, where even in warrants, they refer to Eagle Nation Cycle as an outlaw motorcycle club. There's many references to gang activity, heroin sales, weapons, a police assassination plot against the Neenah Police Department. Only, I guess, I'm being informed by my side counsel here, is that it goes to the felony murder charge, and that the officers trigger happy or potential fear of this gang and recorded assassination plots. This 2012 drug raid, they recovered guns, heroin, crack pipes, and according to statements that I have. And I think it's important to establish the officer's prior knowledge or even opinions of what sort of people they were dealing with, or what they were responding to as a call.
Mr. Seaman.
Your Honor, for a number of reasons this is inadmissible. One is prior bad acts, character of witnesses, victims. The defendant should have filed a motion under 90404, so some analysis could have been done by law. That has to happen before the trial occurs. He did not do that. The court's already ruled that this is not going to be a trial in a trial. This is another end run leading up to the federal civil case, which the court has ruled is inadmissible and not going to be tried. So for those two reasons primarily, one, that there's already a court order in place that we can't go there, two, for the defense's failure to provide a proper motion under 90404 and give notice and to the state, this is all inadmissible.
All right. Again, Mr. Flatoff, the court has to exercise some of its authority under Wisconsin case law, section 90104 of the Wisconsin statutes, and also 906.11, term 1, which says that judge shall exercise control over the mode and order of interrogation of the witnesses and avoid needless consumption of time. But above and beyond that, under 90401, that it's relevant and goes to a consequential issue in this case. The state objects as to they were not provided proper notice as to prior bad acts. You know, I'm trying to weigh all this to give you a chance to present as you want, but there has to be some limitations because we need to move this case forward. So I will let you go very, very little into this area. And if you can ask, did he have a heightened state of alertness because of, have you been there in the past, have there been other problems? But we're not going to go into specifics because otherwise, Mr. Flatoff, I mean, this could go on for days if you wanted to go to every incident, every allegation, every information this officer knows or every other officer knows, and it's not gonna, we're not going to go down that road. So I'll give you a very little leeway that you can ask, you know, have you been there in the past? Having been there in the past, has it given you additional cause for concern or additional heightened caution here? But that's about as far as I'm going to let you go. And I do want to, you know, again, put you on notice, Mr. Flatoff, that we, you know, you're giving some leeway here initially with some of these witnesses, but eventually, you know, we have to get to the trial in this case. It seems like we're talking about everything else, but getting to this actual incident. For example, the sale of the motorcycle, you know, most of the morning was spent on that, I feel, and we're not really getting to the crux of the case, and you could be losing some of these jurors' interest if we continue down all these paths of where he got a telephone number from, did he get 19 calls versus 40? I mean, maybe in your mind that's huge, but the point is that he was trying to make is he got a lot of phone calls from you, and I think most jurors would say that's a lot of phone calls, 19, whether it's 40 or 19. I don't know. So the bottom line is I'm asking you to get focused on these witnesses, and I get you want to make certain points on these witnesses, but make the point, get there, and then move on, because otherwise you're gonna lose the jurors' interest. You understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Seaman, anything further?
So the court, I just asked that the defendant follows the court's order so he can ask, did you have a heightened state of awareness going into this building? Because I am concerned, because what he blurted out with Vance Dalton at the end there is completely inadmissible, and he has to have, he's pro se, but at some point we have to, I'm asking the court to order him to comply with the rules of evidence, which he was warned about he has to do. And these prior bad acts that he's alleging of the state's witnesses, victims, is inadmissible. There's got to be parameters set up clearly for the defendant.
All right, it's a difficult thing to manage here, Mr. Seaman, but I agree, Mr. Flatoff, with Mr. Dalton, you yelling out something about some prostitution conviction was not appropriate. When that type of stuff has to be pre-approved by the court under 90404. I allowed it, you get into prior criminal convictions, and I was clear as to how that procedure worked, which is, have you ever been convicted of a crime, how many? But you can't just blurt out what they are and go down that road. So you're clear as to what you can talk to Officer Cooper about. Only have you been there in the past, and based on your past experiences where you had a heightened state of caution. You understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, let's take a short break. Let's get them back here as quickly as we can. We need to keep this moving. So as soon as you get them back from the downstairs, we'll bring the jury back. Okay, Mr. Flatoff, you can continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Going back to where we left off, did you have, Officer Kufel, did you have a heightened positive by alertness due to prior contacts with Eagle Nation? The morning of December 5th?
Already was pretty heightened since we were going into a hostage situation, so I don't know if I could get any more heightened than that.
Was the location of Eagle Nation a factor?
Not initially, no.
So when did it become one?
After the shooting,
Could you explain that?
beforehand, I didn't really have time to process. I knew where we were, but I was not thinking about our history. It's a rapidly evolving situation and we had to move, so I didn't have time to dwell on the past.
What did you think about after the shooting? This initial shooting?
That we were ambushed.
Why would you think that?
Well, based on what happened when we made our entry, my observations, the gunfire, everything that happened that day, and then as we were regrouping and just getting everything put back together.
Are you familiar with, are you trained in hostage situations as a SWAT team leader?
Yes.
And are you familiar with the policies and procedures for priorities of life?
Yes.
So what in your policies and procedures specifically made you believe that this was an ambush?
It was based on our observations. There is no policy or procedures on every single incident that you can encounter. We have our priorities of life that we use as our guidelines for our decision-making purposes, but there's no play-by-play for every situation that we go into.
In a hostage situation, as a law enforcement trained SWAT officer, aren't priorities of life or your training, I don't know which one, either one would come in the case, but aren't all individuals inside of that building presumed to be innocent until you can prove otherwise?
No.
How would priorities of life apply in a hostage situation?
Priorities of life are hostages, innocent civilians, the police, and then the suspects.
So you say, you had testified when you came in, you started receiving gunfire from your right, and you returned military term suppression fire while hostages were in the building. Is that correct?
Well, at that point, when I received the gunfire, I didn't believe they were hostages anymore.
Did you have my description prior to going into that building?
We had a description.
Was there, you had reports that there was an armed subject in there?
Yes.
So if the armed subject or hostage taker were in the building and he fired that gun, would that automatically make all the people in that building combatants or ambushers?
No.
So I guess what I'm trying to figure out, Officer Kufel, is when you returned cover fire, you had said it was dark and you couldn't see in there, that you were shooting in the general direction that you felt the gunfire was coming from. Wouldn't that be putting potential hostages in danger?
Well, you're incorrect. I didn't say it was dark and I could see. I guess I could see it was not affecting me as bad as other officers.
You immediately took gunfire and you felt concussion on your face that was from the right, correct?
Yes.
And upon entry into that building, I guess, this would almost be something you would have learned afterwards or possibly known at the time. The Officer O'Bray and Thompson had fell down the stairs, correct?
At the time, I had no idea what happened to them.
Were the stairs at Eagle Nation to the right?
They were at that door.
To your right?
Correct.
Is it possible, in your, I guess in your professional opinion, that when Officer Thompson fell down the stairs, are you aware he lost his gun when he fell down the stairs?
Yes, I am.
Is it possible that when he, according to the reports, that his arm struck a wall that caused him to lose that gun? Do you believe that to be an accurate statement?
I don't know how it happened. I'm not Officer Thompson. I know he had talked to me after we got out of there and told me he didn't have his gun anymore.
Okay, would it be something reasonable to think that when an officer fell down the stairs striking a wall so hard that it caused him to lose his gun, that his gun could have potentially discharged?
Objection calls for speculation.
Overrule, you can answer it if you can.
No, to the best of my training experience, the Glock 22 that we carry it's called a drop safety, which prevents that.
Okay, there was another officer that fell down the stairs, Officer O'Bray. I don't know if I'm saying pronouncing or apologize if I ain't pronouncing their names correctly, but Officer O'Bray also fell down the stairs. Is that correct?
I later found out afterwards, yes.
And he was carrying a 223, I don't know if they're M16, they're rifles, long guns. Was he carrying a 223?
Yes, he was.
Okay, in statements regarding his entries, prior to his entry, did you see him lose a magazine out of his gun?
No.
In your previous statement, you had said as you were receiving fire, you thought they were coming after you. What did you mean by they?
Whoever was inside.
You felt the hostages were coming after you?
Again, at that time, I didn't know exactly what was going on, but I felt like there were a person or multiple people were trying to kill us.
But you didn't know exactly what was going on, correct?
Correct.
So in priorities of life training, is there any provision if you're ever in doubt that you shouldn't be opening fire when you're in doubt on potential civilians inside?
Can you rephrase the question?
In priorities of life, is there any provision that you shouldn't be? Does it say that what constitutes your right? If you don't know who's in there, and you're not seeing who's in there, and you're not seeing who's shooting at you, does priorities of life allow you to open fire on civilians?
Priorities of life don't dictate when I can and when I cannot open fire. That has nothing to do with when I can use deadly force.
How is that? I guess deadly force. We're going over to that. When is it okay to use deadly force then?
When a subject has caused or imminently threatens to cause death or great bodily harm to you or another person or persons.
But you didn't see any subjects in the building with any guns shooting at you, correct?
I don't need to.
Okay, the next thing that you had asked to testify to that I took notes is you took Michael Peterson from the scene afterwards?
I believe so, yes.
Where did you do it, Michael Peterson, when you
He walked back towards our location by Gord's Pub.
Was he placed in a squad car, or?
He was handcuffed and I turned him over to patrol officers. I don't know what happened after that.
Do you know who the officers were, by chance?
I believe it was Officer Heidi is who I turned him over to.
Edie? Do you belong to any police unions? Like Wisconsin Professional Police Association?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have, or do you have any knowledge of any confidential informants between you, Officer Hopper, Ross, the Neenah Police Department, FBI, ATF, involving anything to do with this crime scene at the time?
Objection, relevance.
Mr. Flatoff?
I would be curious, Your Honor, if there were any confidential informants inside the building.
If there was, what's the relevance?
If they had any, anyone that they knew that they were, who they were, the information that they were receiving from the inside was information they could trust.
All right, I'm going to sustain the objection.
Okay, the information you were receiving over the radio, did you know where that information was being, or where it was coming from? I guess the intel that you guys were being given.
I was getting information from Winnebago County Dispatch, and then later on I was getting information from Captain Gonzalez.
Do you think it would have mattered to the relatives, I guess, to establish who's with them on these walkthroughs?
Okay, and I'm not even sure where this whole walk, I mean, we've been spending 10, 15 minutes on this walkthrough incident, Mr. Flatoff, and I'm still want to hear what your point is or what the relevance of this is. So could you get to that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Okay, the total people in your walkthrough, I mean, the walkthroughs were done to document what the entry team experienced, is that correct?
The walkthroughs were only done with the officers who fired their weapons. So they have its policy and procedures for the walkthroughs to make sure the scene is safe and to document where you were for evidence collection purposes.
Okay, in that walkthrough, with that being said, along with the walkthroughs you did, there was Neenah Police Department Officer Vicki Strebel, Bauman, and more. Were they officers that fired their weapons?
They were not officers, they were officers assigned to the officers who fired their weapons.
But they also did walkthroughs.
I can't remember who was all there. I believe they came up there, but I can't remember if they participated in the walkthroughs of that at that time.
In your statement by the Department of Justice, I'm going to move to, well, I guess I'm going to have to start from the top of it then, too. Have you, prior to court today, reviewed your statement or any of the videos?
I looked at my statement, yes.
Your Department of Justice statement?
Yes.
Okay. And that statement was taken on December 9th at 9:35, is that correct?
Again, I don't remember, but if that's what the statement says.
So that would have been 4 days after. Prior to your statement in here with Kira Shellhorn and Lisa Wilson from the Department of Justice, in your interview, you were in there with, again, Wisconsin Professional Police Association handler Gary Westbrocker and the Wisconsin Professional Police Association attorney Roger Pellick and Jeremy Ballman, right?
Objection, Your Honor, it's relevance.
Relevance.
I'm just confirming what the statement, I guess, says, Your Honor, that who was all in the interview room.
Okay. So I'll sustain the objection. You need to start making whatever point you want to make with it. It seems like, Mr. Flatoff, you're dancing around what point you want to make. So ask this officer what you want to ask him.
I'm just doing, Your Honor, I'm doing the best, I guess, I can with my notes. I mean, this is my first trial, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to re-ask or recall this witness. I don't believe I'm going to be able to, and I didn't. I mean, I have my notes on the case and my knowledge of the case, but I guess without having prior preparation, knowing I'm going to be called, this witness is going to be called today, I guess that would, I don't know if I would account for why it seems like I'm all over. So we'll move on. During your interview and your statement, would you agree that your statement is accurate?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
Okay. During your interview or prior to your interview, you were shown videos.
Yes.
Correct. Do you know where those videos came from?
It was the squad car camera footage and I believe a body cam footage.
Would it have been Squad Car 1, Angela Eachman's body camera, and Officer Robert Ross's body camera?
I know for sure it was a Squad 1 camera and Officer Ross's body camera. I can't say if I watched Officer Eichmann's body camera.
Do you know where these videos came from that you were watching?
I'm going to object, Your Honor, to anything regarding this statement at this point, unless the defendant's going to point out a prior inconsistent statement or a prior consistent statement after a charge of fabrication. There's nothing relevant here. The witness has testified to his recollection as what had occurred that day.
All right, so Mr. Flatoff, do you want to confront him with his statement? Is that what you're trying to do?
Yes, Your Honor, but more to establish, I guess, that they were allowed to watch videos before giving their statements, their initial statements.
Okay, so you established that. He said he watched 2 videos, so now make your point or move on, okay?
Yes, I'm going to move on. Okay, your first statement, I'm going to call it for now till I can clarify it, was on December 9th at approximately 9:35. Was that your only statement to the Department of Justice, or was that a draft statement?
Objection is to relevance.
I'll overrule it. He answered the question.
It was an interview with DCI.
Were you allowed to make changes to your statement on December 14th?
Objection is to relevance.
Overruled. He answered.
We met with them again to go over what they had written from our initial interview.
Did you make changes to your statement?
Without looking at them, I can't recall. I know we clarified some points, but I'd have to review the statements.
Actually, you have 2 draft statements and the official statement. I'm curious if you've seen.
I would object as to irrelevance to the question if you've seen these 3 statements unless there's something inconsistent with his testimony amongst them. The statements don't speak to your trial, his testimony does.
So, Mr. Flatoff, you're trying to offer these statements?
Yes, Your Honor. I would actually want to offer them into evidence also.
So for what purpose?
To establish that there was the way these investigations took place as outlined within the statements by showing videos, and then in addition to that, the original statements that were made were allowed to be changed. Whatever, 5 days later, 4 days after the incident, they had to make their statements and watch videos. And then, another 5 days after that, they were allowed to change their statements. And then I'm in possession of also another draft statement, which I'm really unclear of where that statement even came from.
Okay, so
I I guess I'm trying to figure out, I mean, if he's aware of these statements and shed some light on what was changed within them, or why what was changed in them was changed. I mean, it's,
Okay, so you can confront him with inconsistencies if you have them, but to give him 4 or 5 statements and ask him to start comparing them himself to see what modifications he made is not going to happen, Mr. Flatoff. So you can confront witnesses with statements if there's inconsistencies, but to present 4 or 5 different ones is just not going to work. And some of the things that you wanted to establish, you've already established, which is he looked at a video and he was allowed to make some clarifications as he testified.
are your SWAT channels recorded at the Neenah Police Department for what you were receiving as far as intel?
No, the SWAT radio channel is not recorded.
And to the best, I guess, the reasoning for you to enter is you received through the radio that there was a 5-minute count, or 1-minute count, 5-minute and a 1-minute count. Well, let's look at the 5-minute countdown. We'll back up to this. Through your radio, initially, you were aware of that there was a 5-minute countdown, correct?
Yes, through the main radio channel, yes.
And that 5-minute warning expired, correct?
Not through the radio. And when I arrived on scene, I asked Lieutenant Obrey how long we were into that 5 minutes, and he responded something to the effect about 5 minutes.
And how long after the 5 minutes did you receive the 1-minute warning?
I can't recall. It was shortly after arriving on scene after that.
According to this, while you were en route in your statement, you received a text from Neenah Police Department Adam Struggle regarding bringing the Neenah Police Department armored vehicle to the scene. Is that correct?
I don't remember if it's in my statement. I mean, it's been a couple of years.
Well, where I'm going with this is Officer Adam Struggle part of the SWAT team?
He's part of he drives our armored vehicle.
But he's not part of the SWAT team?
Not really. The SWAT team is just a general term for the entry operators. He's would be the driver of the Cayman person.
Does your Cayman SWAT vehicle, does it have a recording system?
I know there are cameras on there that record.
And to your knowledge, are you aware of any recordings that were taken that day from Neenah Police Department Cayman Rescue Vehicle?
I'm not aware of any.
Would it be part of policies and procedures that Adam Struggle activate a recording system in a hostage situation?
Objection relevance?
Overruled.
Again, there's no set policies and procedures for that. But in a hostage situation, the best of my knowledge with my training experience on that machine is once we turn the machine on and activate our lights, the recorders turn on.
So were the lights activated on Cayman?
I don't remember.
Okay, after the first initial, we'll just call it a gunfight, occurred, you all exited the location. Officers Ross and Officer Hopper ran to the east by Vicky's Salon, and yourself, Officer Thompson and O'Bray, ran to the west by Gorge Pub. Is that correct?
Yes, that's where we came from.
Could you see that rear door from your location?
No.
Was that rear door a point of interest in this SWAT? I mean, should this rear door have been being covered? I mean, should it have been being covered?
The area was that we were setting our perimeter up, and the officers who were set up on the other direction had a better view of it.
But you're saying that you yourself, or from the west end, no one could see that door. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
And eventually, the Winnebago County Bearcat arrived
Yes.
to that location. Does that armored vehicle have a recording system?
I don't know.
So eventually, after you went to the west of your location, at some point, did you hear more gunfire?
Yes.
Did you look in the direction the gunfire was coming from?
Yes.
What direction was that?
It would have been to the east of our location.
So where the door was?
Yes.
Did that give you reason to, I guess, see what was happening and where that gunfire is coming from and why?
We maintained our position because we didn't know exactly what was happening, and then we were advised over the radio shots fired by the other side, the team on the other side.
And this was, I guess, approximately 9:45 and 30 seconds. Would you agree to that?
I can't remember exact times.
So would you, if I told you it was approximately 2 minutes and 30 seconds after you left the rear of that building that you heard shots fired, would that seem accurate to you?
It was a short period of time. I couldn't estimate how long it was.
What were you doing on that southwest corner at that time?
It was coordinating our assets, trying to establish our perimeter better. Again, I did not know exactly where Officer Ross had went to as we made entry, so I had to establish where he was and make sure he was okay. And then it was just a coordination. I was wanting to make sure radio communication with Officer Hoffer, and then we were just trying to reorganize and reestablish or firm up our perimeter of the structure.
Thank you. How far away were you from that position, I guess the rear door, from when you retreated to the west position? Approximately, I mean, feet?
It was the next building over, I know, a couple hundred feet, maybe.
And to the best of your knowledge, no one's seen Michael Funk exit that rear door from your position?
Not from our position.
After you had heard those shots fired, at one point, minutes later, you heard that a subject was down. Did you hear that on the radio in the alley?
I remember hearing over the radio, shots fired, subject down. I can't exactly when that was, but I remember getting that radio broadcast.
Did you have any inquiries to who that subject was? Or what are they doing? Who's seeing this? Or?
I don't remember our exact conversations. I remember that they talked the subject down, he had a gun, something to that effect. I don't remember what was exactly said.
You heard over the radio that the subject in the alley was down and he had a gun?
Something to that effect. I was having a conversation on the SWAT channel.
If I told you that that's not on any recordings, that the subject had a gun that was down in the alley, would you disagree with that?
Objection is to relevance. Witness testified that the SWAT line was not recorded.
Overruled. He could answer that.
The SWAT channel is not recorded. I was getting information from multiple radios. I remember hearing that on the channel that I was on, which was the SWAT frequency.
So how many shots would you say were fired when you heard these shots after you left the building?
Multiple.
4, 5, 3, 6?
I wasn't counting. It was multiple shots.
Do you believe that you would be able to distinguish between a few, like say 6 or 8 and 22?
It wasn't a lot, but it was multiple shots fired.
It wasn't 22?
I don't know. I don't know the number.
Okay. Did you have any concerns about the one down in the alley being a potential hostage or a civilian?
Not that time, no.
Were you aware that the
officers down in the alley exited the building.
All I know is we heard the shots being fired, and then we had a radio broadcast, shots fired, subject down.
But as team leader, you didn't ask, I mean, who's down? Was it one of your officers? Was it a civilian? You didn't ask none of that?
I was being advised by the team that could, and they said subject down. If it would have been an officer down or something like that, they would have let me know. But subject down in the alley, and I remember them, something he has a gun or had a gun or something to that effect.
And from your position, would it be correct to say that the Bearcat, after that subject was called down in the alley, it was approximately 45 minutes later before they retrieved or rescued the subject that was down?
It was a period of time, but I don't remember how long it was.
Did you take part in any of the alleged rescue?
I did not. I maintained my perimeter position.
Would there be any reason that Officer Thompson and Officer Goetz, or I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, but Goetz, rode along in that 200 feet with that rescue deal? Because for the most part, it was Winnebago County Sheriff's Department officers with their Bearcat that did the retrieval of Michael Funk. Is that correct?
I split the team. I had two Winnebago County deputies from their SWAT team. Officer Getz and Lieutenant Thompson, and there was, I believe he's Officer Sawyer from Menasha, who's also on the Winnebago County SWAT team. We started getting reinforcements, so I combined the Winnebago County deputies with Lieutenant Thompson and Officer Getz for the rescue of the individual.
Okay, so I guess where I'm going with this, when that rescue had taken place, was it your understanding that the officers, the subject that was down was shot by officers?
Yes.
Does your department have a policy and procedure in accordance with the law that are you familiar with the law, officer involved death law?
Objection as to relevance.
Relevance, Mr. Flatoff.
Relevance in the officer involved death law, Wisconsin statute 17547, I believe it's section 3 or 5, requires that each agency in the state law enforcement agency have a policy on hand in their department in accordance with the state law. And I guess what I'm searching for is if the police department has a policy regarding, its own policy regarding officer involved deaths.
So you just asked that question. Do you understand that?
Not really.
So what was the question? Does the Neenah Police Department have a policy in officer?
Does Neenah Police Department have a policy for officer involved death shootings?
We have a policy for officer involved shootings, yes.
What is your policy, I guess, on, and I get a little, I mean, I'm trying to formulate a thought here, but, okay, with the Neenah, as part of your policy, your department policy, if your officers are involved in an officer-involved shooting, is it anywhere in your policy that if they're involved in that shooting, they should just cease and desist possibly? I don't know if not participate anymore.
Objection as to relevance, Your Honor. This is going into an area that's already been covered by the court and ruled in this trial, the Department of Justice investigation.
Well, but he's asking more specifically about the Neenah Police Department policy. So I guess if you want to go into that, you'd be allowed a little leeway.
I guess what I'm getting at, is there any policy in place that your department is involved in this shooting, and then 45 minutes later, that would have made, and then 45 minutes later, two of your officers, one who fell down the stairs, is involved in retrieval of that body, or that person? Is there any policy in place that would have barred that reason why that shouldn't have taken place?
No.
you also receive a medal for your heroic valor on Michael Funk's birthday, May 5th, 2016?
I received the medal, yes.
For the incidents that happened. And was this also before the investigation was complete on June 30th, 2016?
Objection as to relevance.
I'm just going to sustain that.
Is it your testimony, I guess, to say that no one knew who Michael Funk was at that time, laying in that alley for 45 minutes?
I had no idea who he was.
I guess no idea who the subject was. Did you have scopes on your guns?
No.
And how far away was he from you?
Again, he was by the building. I don't know, a couple hundred feet maybe.
Would there be any reason why this rescue was deleted from Squad Car 1 video?
Objection, lack of foundation, relevance.
Mr. Flatoff? Response?
I guess I'd be looking for what the question is, if there's a reason why it's deleted from the Squad Car, when they rescued the body or removed the body.
I guess you have to ask him, did he look at squad video 1? Does he even know it was deleted? Was it deleted? And so that's the foundation questions.
Did you look at Squad Car 1 video?
I have, yes.
Did you do all of Squad 1 video?
No.
How far up into the squad, do you recall?
No, I don't.
Did you see any of the video that was released by the Department of Justice online?
I don't believe so, no.
Do you know who took the on-scene photos of Michael Funk?
No.
Were there photos being circulated of myself, Michael Funk, and Stephen Aredo?
I have no idea.
Between you? How long does it take to put a body camera on?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Depends.
Average time, does it take?
I don't know, depends if we're wearing our patrol uniforms or if we're wearing our SWAT uniforms or what type of body camera it is.
SWAT uniforms.
It takes a couple of minutes.
Okay, and according to Officer Thompson's report, he got a SWAT page at about 9:19 a.m. and when he arrived at the Neenah Police Department, he met with you, and he alleges that you were already dressed and waiting in your SWAT gear. Is that correct?
I can't testify when he got the SWAT page. When I was running out the door to my car to go there, he was running in to the PD to get dressed.
Do you know that if your draft statements were recorded?
Objection, relevance.
What do you mean recorded?
Were there any recordings to your
You mean video or what?
audio or video recordings of the interviews? Were you aware of any recording tape recorders or?
I don't remember.
Is there any reason that you can think of why there would be draft statements circulating on January 7, 2016 between the District Attorney's Office and the Public Defender's Office?
Objection, lack of foundation, speculation, relevant.
Sustained.
Is there any reason why your approval date on your report is dated January 7, 2016?
Objection as to relevance.
What's the relevance, Mr. Flatoff?
Well, I guess I'm trying to establish, Your Honor, I guess in this question would be the original statements were taken December 9th. And I have fax copies that are dated through the district attorneys to the public defenders that go, in this case, or with this witness dated January 7, 2016.
All right, so you can answer the question.
I have no idea.
Did you make any statements on January 7th? I mean, do you recall when your last statement was?
It was in December, I believe.
How many times did you meet with Department of Justice regarding your statements?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to this line of questioning regarding these statements. As I've said, unless he can identify a prior inconsistent statement or impeachment point, this is irrelevant.
So, Mr. Flatoff, again, if you're trying to make a point that he's been inconsistent and you want to confront him with these statements, then that's how you use them. But just to keep referring to these statements is not helpful, not relevant to this trial or assisting.
To be showing potential suspects' videos prior to asking them what happened?
Again, I haven't been an investigator all that long. I haven't had that experience, so I don't know.
You are, in your statement, you state you're trained in FBI alert and SWAT procedure. What is a Krav Maga instructor?
It's Krav Maga.
What is that?
It's Israeli for contact combat. It's a self-defense training.
Did you serve in the military?
Yes, sir.
How long ago was that?
From 1999 to 2004.
How were your grades in your specialized training that you received as SWAT officer?
Objection is irrelevant.
Sustained. Mr. Flatoff, we're coming on the lunch break and we're going to be done with this witness shortly. So you have 5 minutes, so figure out your last areas you want to cover with this officer.
Yes, ma'am. When you entered that building, something in your statement that stands out a lot is the situation you were being told over the radio was not the situation as it appeared to be when you entered. Is that correct?
Without reviewing the statement, I don't want to testify to what my statement says. I can't recall that statement was given 2+ years ago.
You did say you reviewed it prior to testimony, correct?
Again, I don't want, without reviewing it, I don't remember every exact term in my statement.
Were there things when you came upon entering the building that caused you to pause and question if this was actually a hostage situation? When you came in that building, was there your initial visual, what you've seen, did it give you pause to believe whether this is a hostage situation as it was told to you over the radio?
Yes,
Why was that?
it didn't seem right.
Could you elaborate on that?
The individuals weren't reacting inside. It wasn't what we were expecting.
In your training in hostage scenarios and situations, does it tell you that hostages act a particular way?
There's some training on it, but it basically you never know what they're going to do.
So the reason you're basing this hostage scenario, ambush scenario, I guess I'm trying to, my final thing I'm trying to figure out for the jury, your comments about this was, you came to believe this was a hostage scenario, or ambush, you came to believe this was an ambush. When you initially came in that building, the way them individuals were acting in that building, did that tell you at that moment in time, specifically, that did it seem like an ambush?
When we got inside and we were giving verbal commands, it wasn't what we were expecting. Given the information over the radio of a countdown and the subject was going to start killing people, it just didn't appear to be what we were expecting when we went in.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Seaman?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you.
All right, and is he excused from his subpoenas?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Flatoff?
I have no further.
Okay, you're excused. Thank you. All right, good timing, lunch is here, and so we'll take about a 45-minute break and reconvene about 1:45.
All rise.
All right, and so, Mr. Slodgy, what I don't know if you, I know we talked this morning about these witness coordinations and you agreed to do that, but I don't know if the message got back to your office because they're still pushing them back to our office saying that they have no involvement with this and you need to talk to the judge. So I would suggest a request that you go back to your office, and even if you're late in returning to court, I think now is a better time to manage those witnesses and figure out, you know, a time frame when you can narrow them down to come to testify, or at least put them in hold and say you'll get back to them by, you know, tomorrow or whenever that is, so they can figure this out.
Sure, and Your Honor, I guess to elaborate on that issue, I guess there were witnesses that were subpoenaed that were contacting my office concerning whether security would be provided to them at the courthouse. I have no idea whether any arrangements have been made, or I don't believe I have any ability to make any arrangements concerning that.
Well, I
don't know if that...
I
guess my understanding is they called the DA's office, who then told them to call my office, but I have no idea.
Okay, this is the first I've heard of it. So if there is a witness that is concerned, then you can let the deputies know in the back, and they can maybe facilitate their arrival. But you can at least explain the circumstances here, that we have a check-in point, and you know, that there are deputies in the courtroom, of course. Mr. Seaman, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Flatoff, anything further?
Yes, John, I think I think it might be more dealing with the conversation personally with District Attorney Seaman to see if it's possible to find out who else is calling today, so I can potentially cross off questions so I know who's coming. Hopefully speed up my line of questioning.
Your Honor, I can. The defendant needs to have his questions prepared. I don't know.
Right. I could see where it could assist him if he knew who was coming, that maybe he could organize better. So would you be able to provide that to him?
I would have said we already had Sean O'Bray, Robert Ross, Angela Eichman, and Tyrone Thompson done this morning, but I can't say the way this is going because the defendant doesn't have anything prepared.
Right, Mr. Flatoff, you know, I'm trying to be as patient as possible in front of this jury, but you need to get focused on these questions. You're asking a lot of questions, and just kind of, it looks like just going down the police report and just asking them things without really a clear goal in mind. I mean, with each witness, I mean, generally you have 2 or 3 or 4 things, some clear points you want to make with them and leave with the jury. And then, you know, that's the message you're leaving with the jury, is that's what they hear. But when you kind of just drag this on and just kind of repeat things that are in the report, or just keep talking about, you know, one example was that safety walkthrough. I mean, I get the point you're trying to make, is you're trying to imply that that might have tampered with the scene. And so make that point and then move on. But you kind of just dance around that issue without making your point. So you need to move this much faster. I mean, we've had now a half a day, and we've only gone through 1.5 witness. And
I'm just trying to speed up, like I say, at least tonight, when he calls the next witness, I gotta be able to dig through 3 more draft reports, dig out this statement, get that video, and if I know ahead of time, I guess it's more for it to cross off questions I already asked, so I'm not re-asking the same question of the next witness on the stand. I mean, I guess I'm asking to do this to speed up the...
Okay. So I'd ask Mr. Seaman to provide that, because I could see where it would provide him with some assistancies, because it's, yeah. All right, let's reconvene at 1:45 and we get moving at that point.
Very well to the next 2.